Imagine that two world wars may have started because of a simple sandwich. Sounds absurd, but on that day, the assassin had already failed. The plan was over. The war wasn't going to happen, and the 20th century would have been completely different. No millions of deaths, no global destruction, and probably no World War I and no World War II. Until one tiny mistake changed everything. A snack, a wrong turn, a message that never arrived, and an impossible coincidence. The kind of mistake that happens every single day. The kind of mistake that normally changes nothing. But on that day, it changed history forever. And this part that sounds almost like fiction, almost no one knows. On the morning of June 28, 1914, Sarajevo looked like any normal city. People going to work, kids in the streets, shops opening. No one knew that this would become one of the most important days in human history. Scattered across the city, 6 young men were waiting, nervous, armed, ready. They weren't generals, they weren't soldiers, they weren't leaders, but within a few hours, one of them would drag the entire world into war. But there's something strange about this story. If just one small decision had been different, the war might never have happened. And what's even more shocking is that the decisive detail wasn't a weapon. It was something so insignificant that most people don't even notice it when they hear this story. Europe was already on the edge. The great powers were locked in rising tension over power, territory, and influence. Germany, France, and Britain were competing economically and militarily. France and Germany were already rivals from a previous war. Nations were fighting over colonies around the world. Nationalism was growing. Military alliances were forming. Countries promising to defend each other if attacked, like a room full of dynamite, waiting for a single spark. And on that day, that spark was Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire and next in line to the throne. A man whose death could trigger a chain reaction between the major European powers because of those alliances. For nationalist groups in the Balkans, especially those who wanted territories under the empire to join Serbia, he represented foreign control over their land. To them, killing Ferdinand was a political message to the world and a way to weaken the empire's grip. One of the most important men alive, and yet, he was riding in an open car with no real protection because no one believed that 6 young men could change history. But history rarely depends on crowds. Sometimes, it depends on a single person in the right place at the wrong time. The plan was simple. The car would move slowly, everyone positioned along the same street. 6 chances, 1 mission. The first saw the car, froze, did nothing. The second failed too. The third threw a bomb. But something went wrong. It bounced off the car, exploded behind it. The Archduke survived, but several people were injured. Civilians, soldiers, people who had nothing to do with the attack. People who were simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time, at that moment. It all seemed over. Mission failed, history unchanged, or at least, that's what everyone thought. Some of the conspirators ran, others gave up, but one of them did something very human, something anyone would do after failing. He decided to eat. A 19-year-old, no plan, no hope, convinced the mission was over, that nothing else would happen that day. Hunger kicked in, and he just went to grab something to eat, not knowing that in just a few minutes, he would change history forever. Because at the same time, in another part of the city, A seemingly insignificant decision was being made, a decision that would trigger a chain of tiny mistakes, mistakes so small they seemed irrelevant, but together they would change the 20th century. After the attack, Franz Ferdinand made a decision. He decided to visit the people injured in the bombing that was meant to kill him, but ended up hurting others. A human decision, empathetic, responsible, an attempt to show leadership and concern for the victims, but it required changing the route. And this is where everything starts to go wrong, because someone forgot to deliver a message. Just one, change the route. That message never reached the driver, and that small mistake would have massive consequences. The car continued along the original route, the wrong route, the same street where the bomb attack had just happened minutes earlier, exactly the place they were supposed to avoid for safety. But since the driver didn't know, he simply followed the original path. The driver turned, entered the wrong street. Someone realized, shouted, "Stop!" The car braked, tried to reverse. The engine stalled. Silence, and then something almost impossible happened. The car stopped, exactly in front of that cafe where the young man who had given up after the failed mission was sitting. The same young man who, minutes earlier, had gone to eat a sandwich because he believed it was all over. The young man spotted the car carrying his target. He instantly realized the unexpected opportunity. His chance had come back. He stood up, drew his gun. 2 shots. And in that moment, the 20th century changed. His name was Gavrilo Princip, the young man who killed the Archduke, and without knowing it, changed the course of history. Because Ferdinand's death wasn't just an assassination, it was the trigger that activated a military alliance system that had been built years earlier. A system designed for exactly this kind of war. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, blaming it for supporting the nationalist groups behind the attack. Russia responded by defending Serbia, seeing itself as protector of Slavic peoples. Germany entered to support Austria. France joined to support Russia because of their alliance. Britain entered soon after, fearing German expansion and honoring its commitments. Dominoes, one after another. World War I, 17 million dead, empires destroyed, economies shattered, Germany humiliated by the peace treaty, forced to accept blame and pay massive reparations, and out of that chaos, a climate of anger and instability gave rise to radical leaders and dangerous ideas. Among them, Adolf Hitler. And the story wasn't over. World War II, 85 million dead, all connected to a wrong turn, a missing message, and the decision of a hungry young man. The most disturbing part of this story isn't the assassination, it's realizing how fragile history really is. How many massive events depend on tiny details. How many tragedies began with things that seemed insignificant, a forgotten message, a delayed decision, a wrong turn. Because history doesn't always change because of kings or generals or big decisions. Sometimes history changes because someone simply stopped to eat, and millions of lives were shaped by that one small detail. If you enjoy this kind of story, where one small detail changes everything, subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because here we reveal what really changed history and almost no one noticed.